Hey everybody, welcome to the weekly Matterhorn Business Development live stream. Tonight I am your host, Abby Johnson. We kicked Neil out tonight. No, I'm just kidding. I am just here to facilitate what's going to be a very interesting conversation on something that's maybe a little bit more controversial than we would normally talk about or address here, but this particular issue has just been eating at me, I'm not gonna lie. And I feel like it's important to address, and it's important for employees and employers to know their rights in this sort of situation. So we actually have an employment lawyer with us, Devora. If you want to introduce yourself and let them know about you and where you operate out of.
Thank you, Abby, and thank you both and Matterhorn for inviting me to come talk to you about this. But I hope will be a really interesting topic for people.
Yeah.
I am what's called a management side employment lawyer. That means that I represent businesses and help them deal with all these crazy laws that apply in the U.S. when you have employees. Our law firm, Greenwald Doherty, is located in the East Coast in New York. I'm admitted to practice law in New York and New Jersey, and I've been doing this for, let's just say, a long time. So I work with our business clients. Basically, I say I work to help them make their workplaces work. I want them to comply with the laws. I want them to help their employees be productive and make sure they don't step in all those legal landmines that happen when you have employees.
Yes, and it's so important when you start having employees. There are things that you can and cannot do, and it's very important to know those things. I know I've growing up heard Devora's name a lot, around the businesses of like, let's call Devora on this one. Let's see.
Oh my goodness.
So I put in the chat here a specific article we're going to be referencing. You can probably tell by the title of this video, we are going to be talking about Dave Ramsey, who is currently being sued by a former employee who was fired. So Dad, did you want to kick this off and kind of give a summary of what's happening here?
Yeah, and by the way, I've known Devora now for at least 25 years, and she has represented our dental clients successfully. And I just want to say that, legal advice is legal advice, and the client doesn't always have to accept that advice, right, Devora?
Absolutely. And often I tell clients, look, you don't have to listen to me. A lot of people don't, but here's the way it works. And when I work with clients, I really try to help them figure out where are they going, what do they want to do? And we try to figure out how to do that within the bounds of the law.
Right. So then the article that we're referencing is from Inc. magazine, and Dave Ramsey is a very well-known online presence. He's a Christian, which is fine, but he has specific financial policy, which leads to no debt, paying off all your credit cards, get a second job if you have to, so that you don't have that weight around your neck. But this article, and by the way, I want to be very clear from the beginning, this is by no means an attack on Dave Ramsey himself. We wanted to do this. Abby and I were interested in doing this because we are small business mentors, and we are not the bosses of our clients, just like Devora is not any client's boss. We can make recommendations, and then the client can proceed as they would like. But this is a major issue here because Dave Ramsey fired a staff member for premarital sex. And what happened is she became pregnant, and she went to Human Resources to apply for her Family and Medical Leave Act paperwork for her pregnancy leave. And all of a sudden, pretty much all hell broke loose because he has a no premarital or extramarital sex policy.
Well, specifically, I just wanted to correct that point. So He does consider his company to be like a Christian-based values company, and they have a list of values within their company of like, as an employee, these are the values we abide by, which obviously has a lot to do with company culture and studying the company culture. We actually have a video this week coming out this week about company culture. And I think it is great that they have a list of values, but one of their values, I can't say the exact wording. It's not like in their values it says you can't have premarital sex. It just says, like you're following the Christian doctrine or the Christian values. Again, I don't know the exact wording, but that's where that's coming from. I don't know if you have it listed in
Yeah, I
front
might.
of you.
Let me see if I can in just 2 seconds.
Yeah.
I don't want to belabor it. Yeah, I can't put my finger on it. It is referenced in this.
In the article.
Yeah, it says and what the company maintains was a violation of its righteous living policy.
There we go.
There it
Yes,
is.
righteous living.
Their righteous living policy. So the question here is, can you fire someone for having premarital or extramarital sex? Now, Dave's defense is that Tennessee is an at-will state. And I can fire you if you have green eyes, because Tennessee is an at-will state. So then the very first question that has to be addressed, Devora, is firing someone because they got pregnant from premarital sex, is that legal?
Well, it depends. It's a very lawyerly maybe. First, let me talk about what at-will employment means and what Dave Ramsey was trying to hide behind there.
Yeah. Define that.
I shouldn't put words into his mouth. I take back the hide behind, but this is what at-will employment means. So all states in the U.S. basically follow this doctrine that's called at-will employment. What that means is that the employment relationship, the relationship between the employer and the employee, what I hate about Zoom is I talk with my hands and you can't see that. So you've got an employer and an employee, and they have an employment relationship. So this relationship exists at the will of the parties. As long as they will it, as long as they want it, it exists. As soon as the employer says, bye-bye, you're fired, or the employee says, bye-bye, I quit, they can leave. You don't need cause, you don't need notice, you don't need any specific procedures. It can just be dissolved when the parties want it to. However, there is an exception. Employers can't fire employees for an unlawful reason. So they can fire them for a good reason, bad reason, or absolutely no reason at all, but not for an unlawful reason. So there is at-will employment in Tennessee where this lawsuit is pending. And if the person had green eyes, there's no law that protects people with green eyes. And that's what Mr. Ramsey was getting at. But there are laws that protect people from getting fired because of their age or their race or their pregnancy or their religion or their disability or one of those what are called protected categories. So I believe in the woman, and I'm sorry I forget her name, Caitlin O'Connor, claims that she was fired because of her pregnancy. That would be a protected category. She also may be claiming that she was fired because he was trying to impose religion on her. So if she can show a protected category that was the basis, then at-will employment just doesn't apply here.
Right. And, if we take a look, I think it's pretty well known that Chick-fil-A is owned by Christian owners. The restaurant is closed on Sunday. And that's just part of their religious belief. But this takes that to the very, very extreme and saying that you're not following the righteous living policy. Now you're kind of way out in a gray zone.
Right. And I actually took a look at the definition of the word righteous. Because to me, it seemed like it always had a religious context. And I'm just looking at my notes. I thought I had it here, but I don't. But it either is from a religious moral code or following some other type of moral code. It doesn't necessarily have to be religious. Mm-hmm. So if he's calling this a sort of righteous living and taking it out from under the religious aspects, there could be some ways that potentially it could be okay. But if an employer has anywhere in their speech, in their language, in their presentation to their employees that we are a Christian company and we follow Christian morals, and that we want our employees to follow these Christian morals, and somebody's either not Christian or not Christian in that same way with those same morals, they could say that the employer is trying to impose a religious requirement on them. That's not their religion. Yeah. That's a lawsuit.
Yeah, and I think in this situation, I read it might have been in a different article that the woman suing says like, yes, I am Christian and I agree with the policies of the company. That's why I was working there, but I also don't think I'm wrong for premarital relations. Like I'm Christian, I go to church, yada yada yada, just not in the same way that you are. So this is where opinion, and it's very subjective, gets entered into this. It's not black and white. This is completely based off of someone's opinion and their own viewpoints.
And it's normal, true, Devora, within almost every business or large business, that it's fine to have a company policy that there's no relationships among employees, right? Or no relationships between employees and customers.
That's absolutely fine. And that's different because there's a legitimate business reason to not want to have employees, especially a manager and a subordinate, to have a relationship. Conflicts of interest, morale issues, favoritism. What if the more junior person suddenly claims they were forced into the relationship and that it was really harassment? So companies can say no relationship. So, usually that they may be a little more lenient when it's two employees on the same level rather than a manager and a subordinate.
So this is different. So Caitlin had a relationship with a non-employee outside of work hours, and now she's being fired. Now here's the next interesting issue, because according to this article, Dave Ramsey has 900 employees. So then it seems to me that this could end up raising gender discrimination, because a man can be having premarital or extramarital sex and there's no consequence. And if it's with somebody outside the company, then no one is ever going to find out. So then, I don't know, if you were taking the stance for Caitlin O'Connor, you could say that this then would be gender discrimination, couldn't you?
Potentially, absolutely. If women are being treated differently than men, it raises kind of two issues. One is, how are you going to find out? You're more likely to find out if a woman gets pregnant than a man, who there may never be a way to tell.
Right.
Unless you're following your employees around outside of work.
That's freaky.
That's and that also may raise other surveillance kinds of laws, privacy issues, privacy rights. Another thing that I want to clarify is the difference between premarital sex and extramarital sex.
Okay.
Because one is usually considered premarital sex is between two consenting adults that are not married to each other, but they're also not married to anyone else. Mm-hmm. Extramarital sex is very often adultery. Mm-hmm. It's people that are having relations outside of their own marriage. So they're married to somebody else, they're committing adultery. In a number of states, adultery is unlawful. Premarital sex, yeah, adultery is still unlawful in about
I didn't know that.
about 14 states. But it's specifically one of the parties has to be married to somebody else who is still alive. Some of the statutes say that. And so, for example, New York has a law that you can't discriminate against employees for engaging in lawful activities outside of work.
Mm-hmm.
So in New York, she gets an even additional claim potentially that I was engaging in a lawful outside activity and you can't discriminate against me, you can't fire me because of that activity.
Mm-hmm.
But adultery happens to still be unlawful in New York. So if this was unlawful, it would be illegal. So that's another wrinkle, depending on the state, the locality where this occurred, you might have to look at that as well.
Wow.
Because it does say the official policy is no premarital or extramarital sex for anyone, and 8 people have been fired for breaking the rules about sex. Now,
including men. They have fired men.
They have fired men. Now, here's where I think Dave's got himself in a little bit of a pickle. One of his popular co-hosts, Chris Hogan, admitted in November of 18 that he was having an extramarital affair. And they were about to launch his new book, Everyday Millionaires. His wife, Melissa, started to make noise. But then Hogan wasn't fired until
I think he
just recently, right?
March of 21.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So this went on for 2 or 3 years. I mean, like, wait a minute now. I don't know, Devora, if you're trying to defend Dave Ramsey on this and I'm on the opposing side, I'm kind of drooling over this one.
Yeah, I would think so, because that does seem to see that he's taking, at least in that situation, treating a man much better than he treated Caitlin, because she announced pregnancy and was fired. Right.
So then when you look at this like a broad picture, what advice would you give to small business employers? I mean, most of our clients have 5 to 10 employees. I think most everyone has under 20. They're kind of like trying to hit that $1 million range. They're trying to establish their brand. And even, by the time you hit 2 and 3 million, maybe you've got 30 or 40 employees. We're not talking about a Dave Ramsey multi-million-dollar empire here. And, you can have your own particular beliefs and your own particular values, but then what advice do you have to the small business owner on bringing those values into the workplace?
I think it depends what the value is.
Okay.
For example, everybody knows that the 10 Commandments says, thou shalt not steal. Mm-hmm. But you also want your bookkeeper not stealing from you or running your clients' credit cards.
Right.
And so it also says in our law books that stealing is against the law. Mm-hmm. So it would, not that this is rises to the level of things usually that people put in their values, but I just want to give it as an example that not stealing is a generally recognized requirement, expectation, call it a value if you want, of society. Mm-hmm. So if you have values of responsibility, of charity, of trustworthiness, of accountability, things that are more generally accepted in society and not focused on, you might find them in a religious context, but they don't exist only in a religious context.
Got it.
Mm-hmm. Better to set up your culture, your values in some way that you can justify for business reasons without having somebody be able to say you're forcing your religion on me.
So then for me, My question would be, is it worth it? Is it, because when you do something like this, you're crossing the line, and Dave Ramsey is, obviously a multimillionaire. I saw something online. His home just went on the market for $15 million.
Wow.
He has 2.25 million followers on YouTube. He's definitely an opinion leader and a personality online. And I guess in his case, it's worth it. But then, I don't know, for our clients, I would say, unless you have a legal fund where you can hire somebody like you, and I'm sure that can run into tens of thousands of dollars or more, you need to stand back and just take a deep breath and before you make a decision this extreme. So what advice would you have for the small business owner then? Anything you haven't said yet?
I think that they need to take a look at what their purpose is. What's their mission, and what is it that they're trying to achieve? And align things with that. What is going to get them on the path towards those goals? For example, in the Dave Ramsey situation, is this really necessary? Only he can say that. I can't answer that question. Mm-hmm. Is it necessary to have that type of righteous living requirement for his employees? If he didn't have it, would he still be able to achieve his business goals? Like he's trying to impose some other type of requirement. And that would be my recommendation for small business owners, is to focus on where are they going and what do they need to get there.
I really like that. Focus on your mission, focus on your purpose, because that's a huge part of my book, Fun at Work. Like, what is the basic purpose of this activity? What problem are you helping people solve? And the basic purpose is not for the owner to have a Ferrari. That would be an end result.
Right.
What we call here, that would be the summit that you're climbing toward. The basic purpose of the business is helping the customer solve a problem. So I love your answer. And, I think this is relevant. There's a company out there called the Black Rifle Coffee Company. These guys are veterans. Have you heard of them, Devora?
Yes, absolutely.
And, in every one of their videos, they have guns. They have scantily clad women. And they're very bold and brassy that, we're veterans. We like guns. And we also like coffee. They hire veterans, and the videos are very actually inspiring, of veterans without legs, without arms, that now have jobs and they're working for them. And that is their brand. And if you don't like guns and you don't like scantily clad women and you disagree with their culture, then you shouldn't buy their coffee. But their brand doesn't promote anything illegal. They have guns in states where guns are legal.
Right.
And so I guess I just want to make, as we're ending off here, the differentiation between what is legal and what is illegal. And if you're going to start operating in these gray zones, then you better be prepared to defend it, possibly to the highest court in the land. If you find yourself in a particular controversial situation and lower courts are passing the buck, are you ready to go the distance on that? And I love your advice. Like, is it in alignment with your basic purpose? I love that.
Well, I love that you support businesses the way you do and help small businesses be able to achieve their goals.
Well, thank you. Thank you. We have a blast doing what we're doing here. We are certified Profit First professionals. So all of our clients have their profit account, their tax account. We just finished a quarterly review with a client that started with us at $640,000 in 2018, and last year he did 1.4 million.
Wow!
And he just hit $1 million in the first 2 quarters this year, so he's on track for 2 million. He has $80,000 in his profit account right now. That's after taking $50,000 and buying another business to add on. So we really have a blast doing what we're doing. And what we're finding is the small business owner is very much underserved. And so what we're trying to do here on our channel is just really help enlighten the small business owner. And I hope the viewers tonight found this interesting. I hope you got something out of it. Abby, any other question you want to ask?
No, I was just going to say, I think the moral of the story here is, I mean, I know maybe not everyone can afford legal counsel right away, but make sure you understand the laws in your state, if you're in an at-will state or not, and what that actually means for you, especially if you're in California, because there's a lot of crazy laws there. Hey, Millie wants to join in tonight. Yeah, go ahead, Devora.
I'm sorry. I was just going to say that we work with a lot of small to medium-sized businesses. My firm is not a huge, big, gigantic, big law firm. We're what's called a boutique, but we are a national firm. We have clients all over the country. Nice. Lawyers admitted in many different states, and we have a lot of what we consider innovative pricing models to help people, because we'd rather focus on the compliance aspect. Yes, we'll defend employers if they get sued, but I'd really rather that a client called me before they fired the pregnant lady.
Yes, exactly.
So go ahead, Abby.
No, you're fine. Go ahead.
One final question, Devora. If the senior partner comes to you and hands this Dave Ramsey case to you, what's going to flash through your mind?
Mr. Ramsey, first, tell me why you did this.
Yes.
And then second, would you take out your checkbook, because we're going to discuss how many zeros are going to make this go away.
Because in court, this is going to get really ugly.
It is. And the thing is, he apparently has the resources. He can fight it. He very well may have some good defenses. I don't have all the information. Articles just kind of give you a high level overview, and we would take the case, take a look at it. But very often we tell clients that it's not worth your money, especially for smaller, mid-sized businesses.
Right.
Get out. When you pay them, you get a release. It ends cycle. It's the end of it. But there are options if you want to fight it. And like you said, how to have a war chest.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Well, thank you so much for your time tonight. I think this has been an interesting discussion, and I hope our viewers enjoy it.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
Yes, so I will put the link to Devora's firm in the description on the YouTube playback. So if you're interested in exploring her firm, you can go there. And if you're looking to increase profit, increase revenue, and have Greg and I personally looking at your business and giving you our takes on things, you can check out our program, Adventure to Profit. All you got to do is go to adventuretoprofit.com and apply there. And we will see you again next week, next Monday, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, most likely with Neil, your usual host. And we'll see you next time.